Wrassling Podcast, Season 2, Episode 9. Back again. Day earlier this time, Dan, due to our gambling activities tomorrow. And something about you at a rally to attend on Friday. I don't know what it was, but anyways, back-to-back great weeks in wrestling, would you say? I think. Like, this is the first
Yeah,
time for both companies, we can say.
yeah, for
I
sure.
bought an AEW pay-per-view. Whoa.
I know. You
Whoa.
said you were going to do it. You followed through with it. Watched it from start to finish.
Which at first I thought I got frauded because I was used to the Bleacher Report receipt getting emailed to me, and now it says Turner Sports. So I'm wondering if that's an Easter egg that AEW is eventually going to end up on that Turner Sports channel that they're trying to build, right? Where we talked about it in the past. So that'd be
Yeah,
interesting. But yeah, I definitely thought I got frauded. Um, but like, yeah, I mean, WWE was great. We saw the return of the Hitman Hart, which is always good. He's still angry at everybody. Obviously, that's not going to change. But then AEW had a great pay per view and should have a good show tonight, based on this weird Proud Boy John Moxley type storyline going on now, where it. Dan, he looks like the guy from American History X right now, right? And it's like, what point is Moxley gonna
I
realize he can turn to be the good guy?
I think that's their new uniform because Claudio was wearing the same thing.
Oh, great. Bald white man in an all white shirt, jeans, and workbooks. I'm sure we didn't learn anything about this on January 6th. And of course, we had a weird crossover on NXT that we can touch on as well. Um, we've been kind of, just to touch on that real quick, we've been kind of like begging the bloodline to do that, right? Like we've said, like if you're trying to separate this
Yeah,
bloodline from like the OG bloodline and assert your dominance, at some point you have to go on a killing spree, right? Like you just have to show up, run through everybody on the roster, make everybody
I
afraid
mean,
if you're gonna show up, and then you just walk off,
yep,
right? And
yep.
I don't know why it took so long, but they did it. So that was cool.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
surprise element for sure because we've been asking for it and they
yeah,
just haven't done it. And then,
yeah,
to be honest, I kind of forgot about it being a thing. Maybe I just wrote it off internally that they would eventually do it and they just wouldn't cross it over. And then boom, they did it. It's like
yeah,
great.
yeah, exactly, right? Like it's like, geez, guys, at least give us credits for stealing our ideas. You know what I mean? Like, come on,
That's
Hunter.
it.
Like I know Stephanie has a thing for me, but Jesus, like let's calm it down.
Okay. Wow, jeez.
Um,
Listen to you.
hey, Dan, when you got the Jason Voorhees Buffalo hat going on here, I mean, you can't do no wrong. So yeah, where you want to begin, Dan? Because we have a lot to talk about, or I don't know if a lot to talk about, but there's like quite a bit like of back to back weeks that have been good. Which is awesome because this is kind of what we always hope for, right? Like, so that's cool. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we should leave AEW to the end because there's a
okay,
lot to
yeah,
talk about there.
yeah, no, that's fine, yeah, and then hopefully by then we'll be at the point where M- Moxley like actually shows up out in the ring and stuff too, because that would be cool. Um,
Yeah, true.
because it's 2 hours, right, for
Yep.
Dynamite tonight. Yes, cool.
Yep.
So yeah, okay. So you want to pick it up from SmackDown on Friday then, because that was kind of be where we left off.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Smack down.
Um, so I guess starts off. Bailey returns. Cool.
Mhm.
And then they showed Giovanni Vinci coming in the arena. Nobody cares. Um, I mean, what do we like? What do we, Dan? He just lost in what 3 seconds? It was 4 seconds. His first match.
Yeah. I think so.
Like, okay, so
Something crazy.
so he's just gonna have to job out for a while now. Is that what we're doing with this guy? Which
Hmm.
fine, like if that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do. But like, I hate when they. No, this might be a tangent because this really pisses me off. I hate when they have somebody go away, they reinvent a character, and then right from reinventing that character, they make them starting off jobbing out. Because then it feels like Vince is still in the company, right? Like it's like if anything, like you could have had him appear, right? And maybe not cost Gunther the title, but actually screw with them a bit, right? Like come
Right.
ringside, screw up whatever Gunther has going on, then go away, and then when Ludwig has his qualifying match, have him screw him over,
Hmm.
right? Like, and I know we get this a lot, but I feel like that's the proper way to bring somebody back instead of jobbing them out right away. Because then I feel like, what's the point of them being on camera other than collecting a paycheck, right? Because he seems like he
Yep.
can go in the ring. Like he seems like he knows what he's doing in there. He's not hesitant. He's not slow whatsoever. He has the body to do it. Like he would be a Vince guy if Vince was still around, right? He's
Hmm.
jacked.
Yeah.
Like he's not tall, but like he fits the part of what you think a professional wrestler is.
Yep.
Um. So yeah, I mean, I guess let's talk about it. Cody comes out to start the show, right?
Sure does.
Starts talking about the bloodline, starts talking about everything else, and then he goes, "I'm gonna be interrupted in a moment because of you know who," and then surely Solo
Pops.
comes
Pop Solo.
out, pop Solo. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of funny to see Solo finally acknowledge the crowd when he got in the ring because that's something he doesn't always do, right? Like he just gets in and he randomly just starts talking. Usually, he doesn't like he. It just never felt comfortable for him to be able to like answer the crowd back in some way. But it's good to see he's starting to get that way, right? Because we had that issue for Roman for what 4 to 5 years, right? Like it just didn't click, right?
Yeah.
And then he spent time with Paul and he spent time doing whatever, and then it finally clicks. And then
Yep.
he's arguably the best we ever had then, right? Based on the storyline, based on what they've been able to tell, like that. I don't think that's
Hmm.
gonna be Solo. I think when we get down the line with Solo, I think we're gonna see a similar path to how much he has gotten better because he can already go with anybody in the ring. That's not an issue, right? It's
Right.
more or less can he put it together talking? Can he put it together in promos? Can he put it together like being the face, right? And I think once that starts to click and slowly develop, it'll take off. But like obviously, that like anything else, it probably takes the whole 10,000 hour thing. So, but there is the "We Want Roman" chant. Obviously, Solo wasn't too thrilled. He answered back to the crowd. But I guess yes. Let's get to the big thing. Cody says he's going to give the true face or the true enforcer of the bloodline the challenge that he wants, and he talks directly to Jacob, and he says, "Jacob, you get this opportunity." And Jacob hops up on the apron, and then he's having that. He didn't really talk to Solo, right? It was more of like a visual thing where like
Yeah.
Solo just turned to him and said, "Get down," like blah blah blah, whatever. Um, so I believe you were the one to bring up. Like, is that an Easter egg for the start of? Okay, so is it gonna eventually build that divide where we see Jacob go to Team Reigns eventually? Which I agree. I think that's an easy path, but I think it's also the right path to do it. Um, so yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts? I thought it was a good promo from Cody. I thought Solo did what we expect him to do, so it wasn't anything like too crazy on the mic, but he did what he had to do to just carry that spot. Um, I started laughing when he did the whole Jacob thing, though. I thought that was hysterical because it's like we've been asking, like, get Jacob involved, get Jacob involved. We want to see Jacob and Cody. Um, but yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts? Did you think it clicked?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. I do wonder what they're doing with the potential dissension. It's kind of early to be doing that, so I assume that they're just doing that and it's going to kind of, go away for a little bit, but then maybe, just occasionally. I don't think it's something they're doing quickly
Yeah.
or anytime soon. I think they just probably want to plant it. But um yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's certainly where we're going to go eventually. I am interested to see how they kind of get there though with Jacob and Cody, because it just naturally will
It has to be Jacob, right?
undercut well, but it'll naturally undercut Solo. When you do that, because Solo should be the last person he's facing,
Yeah.
um, unless they're doing some sort of switch where Solo really hasn't been the tribal chief, but has just been in the stead of whomever that is right now. Which if it's The Rock, or I mean, what are the chances they do some kind of crazy turn of events where this is actually all being orchestrated by Roman, but Solo's going to be out, and Roman's been in charge of the other three this whole time.
Or if it's Paul, right? Paul being the guy in charge via Roman being away. So Paul's
Yeah,
still taking those phone calls and still,
right.
yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said. I think the one thing I thought of today when I was thinking about this was, what if they have it where, so the next batch, let's get to it at Bad Blood, right? Is it
Hmm.
is the Hell in the Cell, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's announced officially yet, but that's where we're going, right?
Oh, so right. So I'm sorry, I got confused. So the cage match is
The cage match is oh yeah, no, sorry. Yes, the cage match is this
yeah,
week.
yeah. Sorry, I got
Is
confused there.
is Friday.
My bad. Yep. So it's on
Yeah.
SmackDown, right? So what if we get to a point where Cody gets the best of Solo so bad that, like, Solo has to step away for a couple of weeks, like Roman did when he would have the Usos and Solo, like, show up to a show, right? But he's not there. But he's a phone call
Right.
away, right? Like, he
Right.
can hop on the jet, he can get there, do whatever, right? That type of
Yep.
thing. So,
Yep.
like, what if that's what they're planning, right? And then Solo comes back, Toa and Tonga are still following him, but then Solo brings Zilla back, so that kind of puts Jacob out on the island for where, like, Jacob's by himself, right? Then, like, Jacob
Yeah.
can either go to Team Reigns or he can stay with Solo. So it's like, it's intriguing, right? Because we were just talking about, did this get kind of stale, like the last 2 or 3 podcasts? Like, is Cody versus the Bloodline stale because it doesn't have Paul, it doesn't have Reigns, it doesn't even have the Uso brothers anymore? So is it still, like, is it still cool to watch, or are we just getting at the point where they're just regurgitating? Um, but it's cool to feel like, oh, okay, this is a fresh turn of events now, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe this is a different angle that they're doing. Um, because I mean, obviously, like, I'm not trying to shit on Cody. Like, I think he's been a great champion so far. I think the story he told with the bloodline is probably top two stories told in wrestling history. But if it wasn't for this, or if it wasn't for him calling out Jacob, well, where does he go? Who's there? Right?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing we've really talked about is Randy gonna make a turn and go, and then that's it, right? Because otherwise, it's just someone. Because you either, I think the answer is if it's not somebody with history with him, so essentially Roman, Seth, who really isn't an option now,
No.
um, or Randy, then it has to be something like champion versus champion,
Well, and
right?
it's not going to be Cena because there's no way he'll come back and go for that title.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
and they already did Cody versus Carmelo, which was cool, and Carmelo almost beat him. But then it's
Yeah.
like, how long can you if your goal is to get Carmelo to where Cody is in the next 5 years? How many times could you put Carmelo in there with Cody and still think he has a shot until Cody beating him just gets stale again, right?
Right.
So it's like you can't put Cody in there with future talent because what's it
Mm-hmm.
gonna do, right? Like it's like yeah, it'll be cool to tell that story, but
Yep.
then what, right? So it's just kind of like okay, we're doing just one-off episodes now with the best belt in wrestling history. Like what are we like? Oh, and we just had Boxley come through with his crew and screw everything up. So that was
Yeah.
a
No more tag team gauntlet match, I guess.
yeah. I don't.
And Pac is explaining why he joined them.
Yeah, which he wouldn't be the one I would put on there on the mic. Like it's tough. But anyways, um,
So
yeah,
that promo ended with him saying this company is ours, with Pac saying that. So I don't know where they're going with this. We can talk about that towards the end, but
you know what I think's g- going on, Dan? Here comes the money. That's what I think coming on. That's what, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we'll touch on that during
Anyway, so yeah.
AEW. So it's like
Uh,
like a cage match on SmackDown. That's awesome. Like that's
yeah.
cool. I'm all for that. How
Well,
long do you think
it
they'll go? 30?
yeah, I was gonna say 2025.
Yeah.
Right, it's 2 hour show still. I looked it up. I believe that rumor of 3 hours was debunked as fake.
Okay.
So it's a 2 hour show still. So I mean, I don't know what else they're gonna advertise for that, but
Yeah, I mean, so I guess let's touch on it then before we touch on Raw from this week because
right
Jacob.
now I think they only have 3 matches advertised, which is the steel cage, Kevin Owens, another like Kevin Owens triple threat, and then Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, I think. So I would say at most they're only going to have 4 matches on that show. So, but anyway,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You think this is all them starting just to like batten down the hatches to prepare for the big transition to Netflix then?
yeah, well, I think so, right? Like the other rumor I saw that I think has more truth to it, at least, maybe not confirmed, but probably probably like Fightful knows this to be true. It sounds like I read a story that basically said, I forget who it was from, but it basically said when they negotiated the deal, for Raw to stay on for the last quarter, basically, on USA. Part of the deal was they were going to have to trade off the hour. USA didn't want the third hour, especially probably with SmackDown coming on to USA as well. And they still, I guess NXT's moving to CW, but they still have it within the USA family. And
Yep.
I forget when it's moving to CW. I don't think until next year, right? So,
I thought it. Go on.
so
I'll find it.
yeah, I mean, either way, USA, as it stands, was committing to 5 to 6 hours of wrestling on their network each week with Raw, NXT, and SmackDown, I believe. But even just Raw and SmackDown, if they didn't change Raw, it would still be 5 hours. So actually, it'd be 5, 6, or 7 hours potentially. So I read that that was part of the deal. But then I also saw that this works into their hand because on Netflix it's going to go 2 hours commercial free, which essentially is going to be like a 3 hour televised with commercials show, right? Like I think a televised show. I don't know if it's still the same, but I can think of all the times Eric Bischoff has talked about it. A 3 hour show with commercials is about 215 to 220, I
Yeah.
think he said, of TV time, roughly. So, and then I think I said this to you earlier in the week. I also wonder too, like with that flexibility on Netflix, there are no hard outs, right?
Right.
There are no there's I guess in theory a hard in if they're actually doing it live, but there's not going to be really a hard out. So is it possible that it's going to be 2-ish hours live with no commercials? So this week, it's 2 hours. Next week, it's 2 hours and 8 minutes. One week, maybe it's an hour and 58 minutes, right? Because they, like anything, they're still going to have situations where a match goes over or promo goes long, somebody takes too much. I mean, if they bring The Rock back, they're going to go long. But now, what do they have to cut anything? If The Rock goes long on a promo on week one of Netflix, or just saying, I don't know that he'll be there week one, but if he goes long on a promo, why do they have to? Do they really have to stop and say, well, now we got to cut a whole match because we lost 10 minutes from Dwayne going over?
Right.
Not really. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how those deals work with, but if Netflix is doing live events, I'm sure they have an idea of how long it's going to take, but it's not like there's going to be a shut off time, right? Like they were doing the boxing event, right? You can't predict for sure how long a boxing event's going to go. If every match ended in the first round, you'd have a really short show.
Yeah. No.
But if
Agreed.
every match goes the distance on your card, we see that all the time. The main event is sometime between 11:15 and 12:30, right? Like, because depending on how quick the other matches go. So I'd be interested to see how that works. But I think it's just conditioning them. But um, to be honest, I don't mind Raw going to 2 hours um,
No. It's
on USA for the last quarter. Like 3 hours is still just feels like a lot. Um,
yeah.
I
I mean,
like
it feels like a pay per
SmackDown
view every
just
week, right? Like.
right, and SmackDown just works very well with 2 hours. They they figure it out. They do it. Dynamite, when I do watch it, is good with just 2 hours. You don't need a third hour necessarily, right? Um, plus too, like we talked about this last week with these intermediate pay-per-views in between the big shows only being 3.5 hours on average, it seems. You don't need weekly television to be 3 hours when you're going to do a pay-per-view that's only 3.5 in comparison. No
Correct.
way.
Agreed. Agreed. Side note, it's crazy that we're getting Ricochet versus Sammy right now. I don't know if you're that far, but like
Yes. Yeah, I am.
that is a crazy match. Um, but yeah, no, I get everything you're saying, and it looks like NXT goes to CW as of October 1st.
Okay, so it is that. So USA will still only have
Yep.
2 programs during the week on its actual network, but they would have been committing to 5, and now and now it'll be four instead of what it would have been, which was two. So
It's
it's
crazy.
still double the amount of wrestling.
Yeah, it's crazy though if you think about it. So I'm just looking at this that popped up from Russell Nomics. Shout out our Buffalo guy. The show averaged 628,000 viewers and scored a 0.19 rating among 18 to 49. The audience is down from the prior week, but less than 0.5%. The demo rose nearly 12%, however. And last night's was the best since late July. And that's crazy, seeing as how many people watched the debate, you said, Dan? Was it
60,
seven?
63 million,
Yeah,
67 million.
that's crazy that they're getting a 12% raise with that going on. Um,
Yeah.
and next Tuesday starts the week of CM Punk, and then it's Drew,
Hmm.
right? Or no, it's Punk then Orton, right? On the following weeks, it's Punk and Orton. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
Punk and Orton. Um, so that's awesome. But yeah, it's crazy. What WWE has going on. We've always said that the 3 hours kind of like there's like not that like Raw has been good, right? At 3 hours, it has been
Hmm.
very good. Um, I think 2 hours might actually make the show better because they're gonna have to streamline stuff, right? Like they're not gonna be able to, like everybody's gonna have to be on top of their A game, right?
Yeah.
Like, um, so that's pretty cool. Um, I and honestly, I'm all for it because then that means I can go to bed by 10 instead of 11:15, 11:30.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's I'm all for it. Um, can I tell you the one thing I think is very undervalued and I think is going to be very good?
Okay.
LA Knight, Carmelo, and Andrade. I think that's going to be
Yeah.
very solid for the next coming weeks because all three
Yeah.
guys can go, right? And then you have two experienced guys in Andrade and Knight that can help Carmelo look even better than he is in the ring. So they're all going to bring each other up, right? Because Carmelo and Andrade can fly off of anything that's around. And LA Knight is going to give you that stiff, perception of everything looks like it hurts. Like he hits hard. He's a big dude. He gives you that classic like wrestling style. So I think this is going to be very undervalued. I know it kind of dipped in the ratings for this, but I don't know. I feel like these are three of the top guys in the company. I I I think if you sit down and put pen to paper, I think all three have to be in top 10 in the company, I would have to say. And that's probably wild to say right now, but I'm just all in on that cuz I think that's cool. Um I'm
No pun intended.
yeah. Um I would prefer that over the Bloodlines versus the Street Profits and DIY. That just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
because
I
you're
I don't I don't know what they're doing there other than just kind
yeah.
of, I'm sure, just kind of keeping them busy until whatever's next in the bigger story going on here. Maybe also getting Tongaloa some reps.
Yeah. 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 Well, and it gives
Definitely
them
he definitely needs it. So
no, Dan, be nice.
he was good. He was, I mean, to his credit, well, not to his credit, obviously, he's just had an unfortunate string since joining WWE, but he looked good last night with the moves he was doing and all that stuff. So he looked pretty on top of it. No more eye patch, so maybe he really did have an issue having to wear the eye patch.
Yeah, could be right. Um, yeah. Sorry, I'm just checking Russell nomics right now. Uh, uh, yeah. So it's been good, and I think I think WWE is going to be tougher for AEW to catch just by them having a streamline with 2 hours. Um, the,
Sure, sure. Yeah,
right? Like it's just, but I don't
yeah,
think they'd have to catch them, right? Like they just keep doing what they're doing with the storylines that they have. I think they'll be fine. I just hope this doesn't take away from what we've been seeing from Jacob, because we've been catching Jacob at the end of the night, right, on Raw and SmackDown. It's like they still, like, if they're putting anybody in from the bloodline besides Solo, it has to be Jacob. You can have the other two stand around like bodyguards all that you want, but it has to be Jacob, right? Like you have to just let him go. Like just let
yeah.
him run through people, do what he does. He has a broken foot, he doesn't have a broken foot. Who actually knows? Like just let him be the
Well,
creature that he
no,
is.
if I'm not mistaken, no boot last night
Correct.
in
So,
NXT.
correct.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I mean,
Not that it mattered.
yeah, right. Yeah. But to transition over to NXT then, let's just get all the WWE stuff out of the way while we're on this train. Um so we were out for the debate and then I came home and I watched NXT over again just cuz I've I've been just addicted to watching NXT whenever I can. So I had the energy when I got home and I threw it on. Um very good. Obviously, it's tough for them to get going based on what was going on last night, right? Because you had the
Yeah.
debate on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. That's not even counting all the other streaming platforms that had it and the other platforms that were tuning in out. So for them to have the best rating since July, it's wild to me, but I believe it. Um, yeah, I mean, it's crazy how strong this show is, right, Dan? Like,
Yeah.
it really is, right? Like, they brought Jordan Grace back. She still looks like a friggin' weapon of mass destruction.
Sure
Like,
does.
she got knocked out though. Uh, who was it knocked her out? Let me see. I just had this. We Are Rosemary and the realist Wendy basically took her out. So now it's Jordan Grace and Wendy at their next big pay per view, which is in September. Or no, is it at TNA's pay per view? Victory Road is TNA. Victory Road is TNA.
Yeah,
So
Victory Road's TNA.
yeah,
Yeah.
so she has a match tomorrow night to further tell that story, which is cool. Um, I ran my idea by you about this because Jordan Grace seems to be on that WWE John Cena type run where she comes out when she's there and says, "If you want some, come get some," right? Like, and it's basically just open to everybody.
Yeah. All the time.
Bring Charlotte Flair back to do it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you got to lose, right? Like, if Charlotte comes back and gets beat, it's not going to look bad on Charlotte. She's been away. But then you're also giving Jordan the rub of she beat Charlotte. But then it's like, is this more of a personal thing of like, will Charlotte let Charlotte get beat? Because that's the conversation that we've heard in the past that WWE has to have with Charlotte. So it's like it's tough, but I don't know. I'm all for it. I need Jordan Grace back as much as she possibly can be back. Um, I mean, it's gonna be crazy. And then on they also had Oba Femi
Mm-hmm.
with Hammerstone, and that's kind of what we've been clamoring for, right? Like we said, bring one of the big dudes from TNA over,
Yeah.
and I don't think there any one that's like correlates to being that much better than Alexander Hammerstone. Like this dude is Jordan Grace if he was like 2 feet taller, right? Like they're just weapons of mass destruction here. So it's like, does Obi then finally have a true challenger? And do you think they do all right, well, Jordan keeps her belt, so Obi has to keep his as well? Like do you think they're doing a 1-for-1 type thing?
I don't know anymore, like what they're doing. I'm still waiting for them to let an NXT person win. I mean, a TNA wrestler win a big NXT. Like I still think they should be putting the NXT men's title on a TNA guy.
Agreed.
You
Agreed.
know, I'm just waiting for that. Um,
But then again, it's Ethan Page.
no, I
Like
know.
he's doing well, right? So it's like I I think TNA should come in and get every title but that title. Cuz then I think Ethan Page can go out there and say, "Look, I'm the only one that kept my title." Like he can basically further his bad guy type persona, basically just shit talking the rest of the NXT roster, right?
Yeah,
Of saying blah blah blah. Like, look it, you you, you guys suck. You lost all your titles. I have mine. What are you gonna do about it, right?
yeah,
And I think it works out perfectly because it fits the persona he's going for right now. Like it fits that like asshole type. Hey, I'm the guy that has the belt. You don't. You suck. Like the typical just when we saw like the WCW champions, right? Like Ric Flair had that classic promo. I get paid more. I have the belt more. I'm better than you. I mean, that was the three elements of it, right? Like,
yeah.
so, but yeah, I mean, another good NXT show, um, which is just wild, wild that it's been this good. And just to touch base on this, Victory Road for Friday, September 13th, and San Antonio, Texas. We have Nick Nemeth versus Moose. Jordan Grace versus Wendy Chu for the Knockout Championship. X Division Championship, Zachary Wentz versus Mike Bailey. TNA World Tag Team Championship, Ace Austin, Chris Bay versus Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards. Knockout Tag Team Championship, Slamovich and Edwards versus Jody Threat and Dana Luna. And Joe Henry versus Josh Alexander. Streaming on TNA Plus and Triller. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's get some NXT guys to show up. Like, let's get an
Yeah.
invasion angle. They show up, screw stuff up. TNA guys have to band together, and then it's just war. Tuesday, Friday night. Tuesday, Friday night. War. Like, it'll be awesome. It'll be a great way to start on October 1st, right?
Yeah, all out war.
All out war and blood. So yeah, kudos to NXT. Even with all the chaos that was going on last night, you guys still got a bump and an increase. That's awesome. Congratulations. But now, Dan, now that we got through WWE, let's talk about the big stuff.
Like, that's the big stuff for sure. I don't even know what else to call it.
I know Logan Paul and Kevin Nash. Wild.
No, that big stuff.
No.
Yeah, that's a little wild too. I don't know what's going on there.
Do you think storyline? Do you think it's Kevin being an old guy and Logan turning it into storyline?
Yeah, I don't know. My initial reaction to all of it was if this isn't storyline, then it's just like, and I guess by saying storyline, I don't really mean like storyline as much as just, if this is not being worked a little for just some views and keeping relevance and stuff while he's obviously gone right now, um then he's really an idiot. Like it's either somewhat working, and I didn't think of it the way you just said it, but that does make a little sense. That it's not really a work on Kevin Nash's side, but Logan Paul was like, "How can I make this a work?" That's possible for sure. Because if not, he's an idiot. He's really an idiot for what he's saying, and then he's really an idiot for like not knowing the terms work and shoot.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
how when he said that on that podcast, which I think was the one with Hogan. Was it the one with Hogan? I think it was the one with
yeah,
Hogan. And he acted like, or at least he said he didn't know the difference between a work or a shoot. And I'm like, I mean, how is that possible that you are in this business, you are a fan of this business, and you don't know that most basic thing that anyone who's not 9 years old watching wrestling understands the terminology. Um, so that's why my initial thought was like, it has to be something that's being worked somehow, somewhere, because he can't really be that stupid. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he can be that stupid.
yeah.
But I like your point that maybe Nash isn't doing this as a work, but Paul is like, well, how can I use this to my advantage? And since he just lost and he's, I assume, taking a break, maybe, or does he have a boxing match coming up?
I think
Like,
he has a boxing match coming up.
so he's obviously not going to be back for a bit.
Yeah,
Um, but this is a way to keep him a little relevant in the business while still not doing anything.
yeah. I Do you believe he's getting 5 million a year?
I don't even know anymore. I mean, what's 5 million a year when you're signing billion-dollar deals with
No, what prime? You you talking from the point of view of like what
Oh, I
Logan
thought
is
you
doing
meant
with Prime or with
I th-
Endeavor?
no, no, I thought you meant his salary,
Yeah,
like his wrestling contract.
yeah, it's 5 billion. But do you think he's okay with that, just based on everything he's getting paid from Prime, or do you think that's more of the fact that Endeavor can just write a blank check to everybody and they're just okay with it?
I mean, I'm sure he's okay with it. I mean, 5 million for a guy who hadn't wrestled a match, right? Like, unless that's a new deal. But I mean, I don't, I've kind of lost touch with what the salaries are these days. But
Yeah,
for the
true.
for the amount, if you look at it as far as what he probably brings in other intangibles, and I don't know about merch and stuff like that, but I'm sure $5 million is a deal for them. You know, so
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, It's interesting. I just thought it was funny because I'm just like, I just thought it was funny. I just, he's like, it's just funny that they're getting into that now because now it's like, is Kevin Nash gonna walk away from this as being like the old grumpy guy, which I think he is, and which I think he's completely fine with doing. Oh, and now we got Darby and Moxley in the ring.
Yeah. Well, Moxley with Shafir, who is like acting as a bodyguard these days.
Which I'm scared of. Like, if I'm in the
Right.
ring between Darby, Moxley, and her, I'm 100% scared of her the most. The most. Because I've seen Moxley in his jitsu matches, and I know I can beat him. He got beat by a fry cook from Red Robin. Like, what are we doing here? Um, yeah. So it'll be interesting, but the real big stuff. Fact, I ordered an AEW pay per view.
Yeah.
The fact we almost seen attempted murder on a pay per view multiple times.
Yeah. Multiple times.
The fact that I seen somebody get their grill taken out and stabbed in the gum, lip, cheek with a syringe.
Yeah. Wild.
I mean, lead it off, Dan. Lead it off. What do
I
you want to start
mean,
with?
it was. It was from. I don't even know how to describe it. I
It
don't
was
even know
a
how to
war
describe it.
zone from the time it
I,
started.
I mean, Warzone is like even calling it light. It just was.
Well, you gotta. Well, you told me this weekend. I gotta stop saying that everywhere looks like downtown Baghdad. You said that's eventually gonna get me in trouble, so I can't say that for this.
Well, you're not supposed to say it on here.
Oh,
You're
oh,
really supposed to, not go with the
gotcha,
political and stuff references, but you do it anyway. So
gotcha. Anyways,
you
um,
don't listen, but um,
it was wild, right? It like
yeah. It really was. It was a really good show. It was a really good show.
yeah,
Um,
I
I
did.
didn't really pay attention too much. I know we had it on for a little bit, but I really didn't pay too much attention to the pre-show because it
Yeah,
was
it
just like we have said, like it's just a lot of like
yeah.
lots of guys in matches and
To-
whatever.
Tony, please stop that. I know you're trying to get everybody you can on the card, but please stop that. It's just too
Um,
much. And eventually that's going to throw off the flow of the card, right? Like it's just too much.
yeah. So we'll just start with the card, right? So first up, right, MJF and Daniel Garcia. Good match. 23 minutes. This says 23 minutes 40 seconds. A little bit of a little bit of just a rivalry match. No title on the line. No, just the two of them. Um, good match. Both good wrestlers. Um, MJF, I've noticed, has reduced a little bit of that stupid screaming he used to do during matches and stuff.
It's occasionally
Um,
now, but it's not for frequent, right? Like it feels like
right,
it's more on par from when like he's throwing somebody out of the ring or he's taking a big bump in a corner rather than like him just doing like a suplex and he does it.
right. Um, so I thought that was a really good match. I don't know where we're going from here with MJF. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Maybe not tonight, but
Yeah, I mean,
So,
and I was
so
impressed with Garcia. Like that's the Garcia that I need to see from here on out. Like no more dancing. Like get straight to the point. Get physical. Like you say that you could get physical, and he did, right? Like he brought it to him. Just do that every time you're in the ring, and you're gonna become one of the top guys in the company, and you're gonna be a top guy that everybody loves to watch because he just brings it when he does it. Stop the dancing and just do what you know how to do, and he does it perfectly. He's very, very smooth, and I think that's very undervalued in that company. He doesn't screw up. He never screws up. There's no botches. He knows what he's doing. His body's in the right place at the right time. Nothing looks uncomfortable until he wants it to be uncomfortable, and
yeah.
that's it. Like,
As a side note, we now know why Moxley picked Darby because Darby has a title shot he's entitled to, and Moxley wants it. So looks like they're setting up that match for the title shot is on the line. If Moxley can beat him, he gets his title shot and then can face Bryan Danielson, who is currently indisposed, so can't wrestle at Grand Slam because of what we'll talk about in a little while.
yeah, that's fine. Did
So
you
then the next match. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no? Did you just see that sign as uh, John Hop Defense? It says actually F star K John Moxley, and he hopped like right into that guy's lap to walk right by.
I haven't seen that part yet, but I'll watch. It's about to happen here.
It's
I
just
did see that Darby also threw a drinking reference at him and said, "You must be drinking again."
yeah. Well, it
Like,
looks like the new tattoo he has on his sidearm says 7-on-7 for Boxley, so that's interesting. But yeah, so what was after that one? Was that
so after that, we had your historically most favorite tag team in the world, the Young Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, EVPs, versus the Blackpool Combat Club, which was being represented by Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. Um, I think this was our match that obviously we didn't really care about, and it went 15 minutes, but
felt
almost
longer?
16 actually. Yeah, it went almost 16 actually. But it was just your typical tag match with the Bucks. Nothing great, nothing special, nothing that we haven't seen a million times before. So maybe in theory, the worst match on the card. Um, so not much to talk about with that. Then we move into Will Ospreay versus the Bastard Pac um, for the international championship. 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Um, really good match. I mean, we said this going into this, like this um
Yeah,
could be the best match on the card, could steal the show for best match. Certainly came close. Uh I think at the time we were probably thinking, yeah, this was the best match for sure. And then of course we saw a lot to happen still. So
attempted
um
homicide twice.
yeah. So in the end, it was a great match. I thought those two are just really good at what they do. Osprey wins by pinfall. I'm sure it's not necessarily over. Um,
I think it's
good.
Ricochet and Osprey next.
Yeah, they showed Ricochet watching right in the back and stuff like that. So they did a little bit of that, and then there was a little promo backstage, with a little pull apart between the two of them. Um, but a good match nonetheless. Um, so yeah, I mean that was good.
Can I give
After
you
that,
uh
yeah,
can I give you a hot take on that?
sure,
I think Neville is just as good, or
yeah,
I think you can. Yeah, you know what I said. You know who I mean, Dan. Pac,
Neville's
Neville.
dead. Neville's dead, just like Zack Ryder.
Uh, Actually, Zack Ryder just showed up on my Twitter feed, so obviously he's not. But that bastard Pac, as Dan wants to call him, he's always going to be Neville to me because he is part of the black and yellow NXT, and that's my favorite thing ever. But anyways, the bastard Pac, just as good, and I feel like if he keeps getting more opportunities with guys like Osprey and like Kenny, I think very very soon you're gonna say he's better than Osprey.
Okay.
I
I
just
I I
I've
I
always
don't
thought
think. Yeah.
he's
I
had
don't
the
think
complete
it's.
package. I just don't think he's had the opportunities.
Yeah, I don't think you could necessarily like you could argue it obviously, but I don't. That's a tough argument to make that he's not
Right.
or he won't be.
And I just think that's why AEW fits him better, right? Because he gets the opportunities against these types of guys, and these are the type of guys he needs to be in the ring with. Like he wasn't getting his shot in WWE with guys like Ricochet or Andrade. Like he was basically wrestling other cruiserweight guys, and yeah, he's I guess the height of a cruiserweight, but he can go with anybody. Like I don't like it's not a concern. Like he's
Yeah.
just that good. And I feel like if he keeps getting like that's why I don't want him to get so lost in this whatever Moxley's doing because I think they have like you know how busted open has always said that AEW just has to like find these guys that people don't think are stars and show that they are stars. I think that's easily done with him. Very easily. You just continue to get him in the ring with these types of guys like Osprey and like Ricochet and like Kenny whenever he's back. Like
Yeah.
he's he's better than any of the Bucks brothers, and that's not even a question. I mean, that's
Right.
not right. So I
Hmm.
just don't want him to get too distracted with this storyline that he just kind of doesn't fall off, but people just forget about him because he's not really involved with anything besides being like a secondary or a third type role
Yeah.
player, I guess. So, but I was thinking about that today a lot because I went back just to watch clips on that, and I was so amped watching that, so amped. So, what did where did it go after there again, Dan? What was the next one up? Was this the street fight?
This next one was a street fight. Chris Statlander with Stokely Hathaway defeating Willow Nightingale. I mean, it was a. I mean, it was just a street fight, right? It was a good street fight. They
Yeah,
they brought out. They went as far as the light tubes and all that good stuff. So um, 15 minutes on the dot actually was the match time, and just what you get out of a street fight. Not a lot of not a lot of storytelling as much as just beating the hell out of each other. Um, to end a little bit or maybe put an end to a mini blood feud they had going.
yeah. I don't think
Uh,
I don't. I mean, I don't think I feel like wrestling companies get too involved sometimes when they have these street match things, and they're just like, just let it get bloody, just let it get violent. That's what people are here for. Like you're bringing back the hardcore title like every time you do a street fight, right? That's basically what
mhm,
it is. And yeah, let's okay, cool. Like it's good for a m- batch or two. You don't have to get
yeah,
insanely bloody all the time, especially
no,
what we weren't prepared for later on in the card, right? Like
yeah,
so like
yeah,
it it worked, right? Like it worked. So yeah, I mean, because I definitely, and I'll come out and say it, I definitely thought that was going to be a dud. I think it did exactly what it was supposed to.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
It did exactly what it's supposed to. Continued the story in the feud, got violent, had some crazy stuff, and it just moved the card down the road.
Yep.
Great job to those involved. So, yep. Next one up.
Four-way match for the AEW Continental Championship. Okada, Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Takeshita. Okada comes out victorious. This is another 15 minutes on the dot match. Um, Four-man matches are tough, especially in AEW, because they put so much emphasis on the big moves and things like that. So when you got four guys that got to get all that stuff in, it gets a little kind of crazy for a while, and there's not a lot of like wrestling, just a lot of big move after big move after big move for sure. They did a lot of that, like two guys in the ring doing a couple of minutes, and then the other guys would get in the ring, or they'd
Switch on,
switch
switch
on and
off.
out.
Yep.
So it was fine. Okada wins. Um, you know, Good match. Got the guys in there. You know, Features the championship. Nothing crazy, but overall a good match. Some good moves for sure. Those guys can go. Um, me personally, one of my personal favorites is Orange Cassidy, and he's always fun to watch. So
Always very fun. Very fun. Yeah. I mean, would you say that was the weakest card on the match
no, I think the tag match was still the weakest.
with the Bucks?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That a boy, Dan. Grab that shovel. Let's throw some dirt on him. That a boy. That's my boy.
Uh,
Big job, Dan.
Although
Good job, Dan.
the next match might be in running too. Mercedes Monet, the CEO,
Yeah, I.
defeating Hikaru Shida, singles match for the TBS Championship.
Yeah, let's get to it.
It's just
What are they doing with her?
I don't know what's happened to her. I don't really know.
Like, do you
I really don't know.
at at what point does Tony Khan regret her being a top two paid person in the company?
Well,
Because the only person
you know, he,
supposedly higher is MJF.
he lives in his own little world, so for him, he'll never feel that way. Um,
I guess. Okay, then. When do you think Shivani and everybody like probably realizes Tony probably did too much with this? Because it kind of just seems like he proved WWE's point. Like, yeah, she's great, but like, is she great for what she's asking, or is she just okay for what she's asking? Right? Like, if you have MJF walk in there, and you have Mercedes walk in there, and who else from WWE? Let's say, hmm, let's say you have Bailey walk in there because she's a free agent soon. In what order are you paying them? Obviously, MJF is numero uno.
yeah,
Bailey then her,
probably.
right? I like it.
Yeah.
Just it seems like whatever she had is gone. Like even when she did the Barstool podcast for wrestling, it like Brandon didn't seem like he enjoyed talking to her, right? Like it just seemed like it was flat. It was dud. It was just kind of like they were just trying to get through it. Like I don't know. I don't know. I like and I'm not trying to crap on her, but like I don't know. Like what is it? Like they didn't bring her along the right way. She's not as good as what her paycheck is. Like I don't get like she doesn't feel comfortable at AEW. Like
I think it's likely. I mean, I think it's likely that she 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 definitely has been a good wrestler in the past,
yes,
but I think it's probably a little bit of maybe she's lost some of it, a lot of time off, and she moved into environments where there's not a lot of production first, and
right.
there's not a lot of like,
That's true. That's a good
you
point.
know,
Very good point.
right? Like the New Japan stuff. I don't. I don't know for sure, but I get the sense that when New Japan brings someone in for short term, like they did with her, and they don't do a lot of like programming and or producing. I mean,
Nope.
with that, like they just kind of expect them to go out there and wrestle,
Yep.
and maybe she just doesn't thrive in a situation that isn't heavily produced. Um, and just to a degree, maybe she's more in her head was more pumped up from what she did in WWE. And in the end, it's really the machine behind her that helped with that.
It's very
And
true.
she thrived within it and she stepped up to what WWE needed. But now it's just kind of on her. And, you know, I can't think of, there's been interviews out there of other wrestlers out there that, you know, on their own device couldn't book a match to save their life, but if they have a little guidance, they'll give you the match of the year.
Yes, agreed. No,
You
that
know,
yeah, I didn't think about that perspective of like having her handheld to where she only has to go out there perform and then she's done. Now she has to do it all herself, right? There's not a team of writers. She
right? And
speaks to
and the
Tony,
other
and that's it. Like
and the other part of it too, I think, is like it was it's a much different roster and talent
yes,
level in AEW. I mean, it's easier to have a really good match with Bailey and Charlotte and Becky and Naomi and
yep,
all these women that they've had in WWE. And and again, you go to AEW and the talent's not the women's talent isn't on that level necessarily, and you have a lack of production and agents helping with that. So
yeah. No, I
that's what I think the two main factors are.
yeah, no, that's a good point. I totally overthought that and I forgot about that. So yeah, I mean that's tough, right? Like that is tough. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know,
very
man.
tough. It's very tough, and I don't know when or how it gets better. You know, it may not. So
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's sad too, right? Cuz they were so hyped for her. Like they like
yeah, yep.
so anyways, but yeah, that's probably tied for the Bucks for being the crappiest. I agree. Um let's move on, Dan. What is the
So the next, we only got two matches left. One official, one not official. So the last official match of the night, in theory, the main event.
Wait, you're telling me they're going to turn the lights out for the last
I
one?
am telling you they're going to turn the lights out
Whoa.
for the last one. Um,
Whoa.
oh, there you go. So the last match of the night, the last sanctioned match of the night,
Oh,
was
thank you, Dan. Thank you for throwing
Brian
that in there.
Danielson defeating Jack Perry by pinfall, a singles match for the AEW World Championship.
Thank God.
The match was fine,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is what it is. But that doesn't really matter. I mean, it did go 27 minutes, pretty long match.
Yeah, it's a pretty long match for
Um,
Jack Perry.
but it was a good match. I think Brian Danielson definitely helped Jack along, and that it was good. Um, but what really only matters is what happened after the match. So, match ends. Brian wins, and out comes the Blackpool Combat Club to celebrate with him, including Moxley, who wasn't there last time he won. Although I do believe I read that was because he was actually, I think he was in Japan for a match or something.
Yeah, he was at that tournament.
Um, yeah, so I guess that makes more sense now. But anyway, Wheeler, Claudio, Moxley, and Pac get in. Moxley gives Danielson a big hug,
Well, they stopped the
kiss on the
Bucks first, right? because the Bucks walked down afterwards,
Oh, you're right. You're right. The
and
Bucks
then
came down. Yeah, the Bucks came down and whatever, and they broke it up. So they get in the ring to celebrate with him. He's holding up the title. Crowd singing the final countdown again, and Moxley gives him a big hug, kiss on the forehead. They go to do the good old. Everybody puts their arms up. Raises his arms, and Claudio hits him with the uppercut forearm. Danielson falls to the ground, immediately looks up in shock that he's been attacked. Claudio does look a little conflicted about what he's just done. Pac grabs Wheeler Yuta,
who's
puts him in a
crying
corner, who's crying,
with one
puts him
arm,
in
just
with
like
the one
this.
arm, holds him in the corner, while Moxley takes out a plastic bag and proceeds to put it over Bryan Danielson's head.
And Scott Peterson him.
And oh, God, Jim.
It's just wild.
Oh my God! And yes, proceeds to cover his complete head down to his neck with a plastic bag and
It
choke
looked
him
bad
out.
at first because
I,
you couldn't
I,
tell.
it definitely looked like his mouth was not
Yeah,
free, and there was no way air was
yeah,
getting
because
into
his
that bag.
hands, like at first,
He went
Brian
all the way
Daniels'
through.
hands are
Yeah,
like, I don't know, kind of like at the top of his chest, right? And it's kind of like he's
yeah.
trying to pull it this way instead of like tucking his hands under. So if he's pulling it this way, that means that bag is as tight as can be on his throat.
Well, and the other thing you could tell too in the very beginning is as he's breathing, the bag is literally tightening to his
Yeah,
face and then blowing back
yeah,
out.
because you see the
So
sides.
right. So that air is not getting out of the bottom where the hole is. And it was like that for a good 20, 25 seconds, I felt. And then you could tell they got it right because you could kind of hear his voice yelling out of it too. So he was getting air, but whatever. So he choked him out. He held it for a long time. Wheeler continues to cry in the corner, being held with one arm by Pac, which I did think that was a little funny. I kind of felt like they should have just like knocked him out,
Yeah,
but
or just
yeah,
knocked him over the rope or
yeah,
something.
something, but they didn't. So that's fine, whatever. Um, and then they just get up and walk out, and nobody has any idea what's going on. And Dynamite and started tonight with a promo from them, and it did show a clip of a video of the Blackpool Combat Club walking out of the backstage area as the medical team was dragging Bryan Danielson into the back area to treat him. They didn't even stretcher him, they literally like grabbed him and carried him. So we
With
got a
the
little taste
oxygen.
of that. AEW went as far. I don't know if you noticed this or saw this. AEW went as far as to put out a tweet that says, "Due to the graphic nature of what John Moxley's done, we're not sharing the video of what just happened,"
I didn't know
because they
about
had
that.
been, yeah, their official Twitter feed, and then they wrote, "We don't condone his actions." Like, obviously they've been putting clips up of everything that happened. They tweeted out they're not doing that on that one, so they're definitely through it. Um, Yeah, crazy, right? Like, and little did we know that this was only the first attempted homicide we were going to see that night. But it was crazy, and it is developing the story. At the time, obviously, we had no clue where this was going. We have a better idea now as we record this, as Dynamite is live during recording of this pod, that obviously Moxley has an issue with the AEW locker room, the company, and that he's kind of decided to start this faction or kind of reorganize this faction because this company is ours now. And we're done with it. We set out, I think he said 2 years ago, we set out to change this company and to make this company something special. And all we have now is a bunch of egos back here. And apparently, Ryan Danielson is the first ego he's got on his list. So tonight we find out why he's been looking for Darby, He's wrestling Darby at Grand Slam, which is in 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And um, he's wrestling Darby for a chance at a world title shot against Bryan Danielson, which I would assume will be at Wrestle Dream, which is October 12th.
Grand Slam is September 25th, 7:30.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks. So I guess we have more of an idea of what's going on. Oh my god, I think actually September 25th, did you say?
Yeah,
I am going to be in New York on Long Island that
you
night.
have to go.
I have to try to go now.
Yeah, you have to go.
So yeah, so
Wild. I don't.
yeah, wild. I mean, obviously we kind of know where this story is going. Um, but know we don't know where it's ending, I guess, right? Like obviously his next target is Darby, which is leading him to Danielson. Pre-pod, I mentioned to you, do we think this is he going to be the one who retires Danielson? Is that how this is going to work? That Danielson's, he said he's going to fight till he loses it and then he's going home. Does he let Moxley send him home? It's a very negative way to go out, I will say that much.
Yeah, but I guarantee they let him pick Boxley, right? They probably said, "Who do you want?"
I'm sure. I'm
And
sure.
it's cool they did it that way. I just hope we don't see him suffocating in a bag again, as the way he goes out, right? Like if they
Well,
like if
that's the thing. Like, what kind of match
if they go out putting him on a stretcher, fine. Like if he like drops on his head, we get it. He's had concussions. Like we kind of expect that, right? Like we kind of expect that to eventually happen with him. But like I
I have
I
no idea
just
what
I
Jericho's doing.
yeah. Uh
Going after Orange Cassidy and the best friends.
no,
I
that's
don't want to see him, right?
Briscoe.
No, that's Orange Cassidy in that picture.
Yeah, but then there's
Oh well, you're ahead of me,
oh
but I mean, he brought out a picture of Orange Cassidy and best
yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho.
No, I yeah. Um and then okay. Well, like we said, attempted homicide. Pretty wild.
Yeah,
Definitely
I
got your heart
mean,
going for the final one, right?
what? Yeah. Well, one thing I'm going to say is I have said on this pod before that generally speaking, these over the top, like gory matches with a lot of blood and a lot of crazy stuff don't generally bother me. Like they just are what they are. When they do the things they do, with the blood and the all that, they don't generally bother me. I don't have a big issue with it. I will say twice watching this pay-per-view, I found myself going, "Holy crap, this could be too much." like I have to change my previous stance basically. Um I don't know.
Yeah, it I was
It's
thinking
wild.
about this. I do you think it so because my dad was telling the rest of my family about the stuff that we watched, and he's like, "You should see the creepy shit they watch." Um, do you think it was the solo effect of the bag? I think it was the bag for me. The bag for me just kind of like
Versus anything we're about to talk about that we saw in the championship or in
I just think
um
the bag in general kind of not woke me up, but like kind of just got me to the point of like, did we just watch what we just watched?
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like,
I hear you. I hear you for sure. I agree with
but
you
then
of
like I
like
don't think like I expected. So like I said,
it's did they cross a line?
yeah,
That's the question.
which Twitter was
Did
losing it, correct?
right, like chair shots to the head are one thing, and we'll talk about that
Oh
in a
yeah,
minute. Chair
yeah.
shots to the
Barry
head,
Bonds tee off on him with a chair shot.
right? Chair shots to the head are one thing, right? Like pizza cutters for right,
Yeah,
have
right,
been another thing,
right.
right? And we've had those conversations too. Is a pizza? I mean, go back to Nick Gage and Jericho in AEW. They did the pizza. Was it Jericho? They
Yeah.
did the pizza cutter spot, right? Like, is that too much?
So
Light tubes, like whatever. But like the chair shots to the head have been a thing. But what I'm trying to think of now very quickly is what were angles and storylines, and not storylines. What were things that happened in wrestling previously where we've said, did they cross a line? So I'm ruling out chair shots to the head because that was so commonplace. It's not crossing a line, and
so if you want to
I'm
go,
talking
yeah.
about the bag or like this is not the example I want to use, but
So
the snake biting Macho Man was crazy at the
yeah,
time,
and
right?
then after that, you had a lot of. I wouldn't know if you want to say complaints because the internet wasn't fully there yet for wrestling. But what got a lot of people talking is the first time they did like the casket on fire matches because Taker got burned, like because it wasn't set up properly. So like they were doing light this casket on fire, and we'll figure the rest out as we go through the match, right? Or kind of like when Taker walked through his
Right.
entrance and he had what do you say, third degree burns that he was
Oh yeah, because the
standing in
the
the pot
pyro,
just throwing water on
yeah,
it. Like
the the
right.
pyro
Like
wasn't set up
back in the
properly.
day WWE didn't try any of that stuff out. They went to Vince with an idea. Vince turned to the stage guys and said, "Can we do it?" And then they're like, "All right, let's try it." Right? So it's becoming they've been overall it's been more protective of the talent, correct? Right.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why I'm just trying to think of like the things that the things that wrestling companies, and I mean the mainstream ones, have done that have been so far over like crossing a line. And like, so I think of the bag thing we just talked about. um and I don't even mean things like the Katie Vick storyline in WWE. Like that was obviously over the line and just weird. But I mean things they physically did, like um
No, right, but that's kind of like where it started, right? I would say the first, like when you saw Mankind get thrown off the cage, right?
yeah, yeah, at the time for sure. That's a good
Right,
point
like
because yeah, they really weren't doing things like that. Um
I guess I mean, and back at
well,
that time,
and then throwing them through the cage 5 minutes later,
yeah,
which in theory was kind of an accident, but like
it worked, right? Like it,
yeah,
and then I guess like anything you can say with Mankind back then when he pulled out the thumbtacks because they weren't really shaving the thumbtacks back then. They were just the smaller thumbtacks that he threw in the ring. And then when you saw a guy back then get picked up, his whole body was looked like it was in glitter because it's just one big giant sheet of thumbtacks, right? So like it
yeah.
slowly evolved to where like yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't. It died down once they were out of that, like when they got into the PG era, right?
Oh, for sure. Like
Like
I
it.
mean, one of the things like
It's tough.
yeah, I mean, I really can't think of too many things that they did that, and again, I mean like
Yeah,
physically did to one another, because like I was thinking you could think of like the time they did Big Boss Man dragging the casket from Big Show's the funeral, like that was like whatever. And obviously they had all the sexual stuff with McMahon and everyone that obviously doesn't stand the test of time. But I just, I think of, yeah, like what you said with the thumbtacks maybe in the beginning and the throwing Mick off the cage at that time. For me, the snake biting Macho Man was crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah,
the I just had it in my head of something they did. Um, well, actually, remember years and years ago? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you can kind of say the live stuff
Well,
too.
buried alive. Although the only thing I'll say about that is like you knew going in they were going to do that,
True.
and
Yeah, it didn't
you
catch you
kind
off
of knew
guard.
it
Yeah.
was a production, right? Like, yeah, I'm thinking of the like the shit you weren't prepared for. Another thing I think of, I just had it in my head. Well, remember a long time ago, one of the first times they did this, when Undertaker locked Ultimate Warrior in a casket and they like closed it and sealed it, and then they like spent time trying to get him out and like all that. Like that was the first time they had used a casket in that sense, and they like it was, I was a kid, so it was like freaky, but I don't know. I can't think of much. So like, yeah, I to get back to what we started with this,
I mean, would you say
we
like would you consider botches in that too? That botches caught you off guard? That you're like, oh my god? Because you could say when Brock screwed up the 5-star shooting press, you're like, did he break his
yeah,
neck?
I no, I don't think about that because those were just mistakes, right? Like you think of that like Joey Mercury
Yeah.
taking the ladder to the face and he just got busted wide friggin' open,
What
but like
about
that was an accident.
just to go back one more that I thought of, Cactus Jack when the part of his ear fell off.
Yeah, but again, like so what I would like for me like with that, if somebody had done something to cut a piece of his ear off, that's what I mean, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah. Yep.
there's an
Yep. Yep.
element of like you did something that real life is heinous, right?
Yeah. That
You
like you
didn't
can't believe that person
accidentally
did
put
it.
a
Yeah.
right. You didn't accidentally put a bag over Daniel Bryanson's. I don't know why I can't speak. Brian Danielson. You didn't accidentally put a bag over his head and suffocate him, right? You didn't accidentally throw Mick off the cage. You didn't accidentally put a snake out there and let him really bite someone on live TV. You did, and here's another one. You didn't drink the blood of your opponent in the middle of the ring by accident, right? Like, they've done the thing where they've like wiped their hand and they wipe it on their face, or Moxley's done that, right? Where he's, whatever, and he's rubbed somebody's blood on him and stuff like that, but nobody's done what Paige did, right?
No. Yeah.
So I think that's the question of did they cross a line by doing this? Because it brings in a very like scary and real element of in real life that kills a person,
Yep.
and that didn't look theatrical. A chair shot is theatrical. It's part of the show. Like I don't know. It's just crazy. I don't even know how to explain it. That's how bad it is. You know. So that's how it ended. Oh, here's one that was, well, this is kind of theatrical storyline, but they did it, and I'll get your opinion on this one because this one isn't, perfectly there. Um, Remember when they like faked Eddie Guerrero collapsing in the ring like he was having a heart attack?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then that's how he went.
Right. So like, and I know that looks worse because he um
Like after the fact, that looks terrible. Yeah.
yeah, that looks worse, but even in the moment like it just was a weird thing that they did, and like, you also like I can't remember, was that before or after Owen Hart had died, right? Like I don't know.
That was
But
after.
yeah, so I don't know. Just I don't know. It just I wasn't sure if it crossed the line. It was just weird. It's just weird. So, but little did we know that that was almost going to pale in comparison to what we were about to witness.
And what did we witness, Dan? Look at that
So
transition.
I mean, first of all, we witnessed the end of the show.
Yeah. Light,
Technically, technically, yep.
lights off.
Slowly they went off. Very slowly, right? I
Yep.
was trying to do something for effect here, but it's not going to work. Huh?
and we had
They
Swerve.
brought him down.
Oh,
They brought him down, and then a minute later, they brought him
back
back
up.
up.
Time to
And all of a
party.
sudden, we're no longer in the show. Cameras are still rolling. There's a cage going to be lowered to the ground,
We're not
but
responsible for any of this.
we're not responsible. That was announced actually out
Yep.
loud by Justin Roberts,
Oh yeah.
and AEW is not. This is unsanctioned. And AEW is not responsible. The show has now ended. That's even what he said. The show has now ended, and we get a lights out, unsanctioned steel cage match between two blood rivals, Swerve Strickland and Adam Hangman Page. A a series of matches that has gone on seemingly forever, but has taken breaks in between, and has resulted in some ridiculously crazy spots to begin with, including what I just mentioned of drinking the blood of the other person. And to clarify for anyone listening or watching, not drinking fake blood, literally watching a guy drip blood out of a fresh cut on his forehead and putting that forehead over your mouth and letting it drip into your mouth. We've already seen that, and I think we saw worse. I mean, this match started with Swerve holding Hangman Page, hoping that the cage, would drop on his neck. That was how we started the match. He attacks him and brings him right to the edge before the cage has even been lowered, and hopes for and holds him there, thinking the cage is going to drop on him, which ends up not happening, thanks to Prince Nana, who went in and said, "You're both going to get stuck, so I'm pushing you in." And if I remember correctly, what did we go to right away? Oh, we went to a stapler right away. A
Let's go back
heavy
to the
duty.
fence. It looked like they were gonna mess that up. Like it got close. Like when they were both
Yeah,
fighting, like they like
yeah.
it looked like not as close as like, oh my god, they barely escaped, but like a lot closer than I thought it was supposed to be. Would you say?
Maybe, and maybe that's why Prince Nana did it the way he
Yeah,
did
like
it.
he just ran over and shoved both of them, right?
Yeah,
And then yes, and then after that we went to the staple gun.
we went to the heavy duty stapler, not your everyday office
No,
stapler, not
no,
the red stapler.
this was the
No, we went
contractor
to,
stapler.
yeah,
This is putting the tarp down when you're doing your shed type stapler in the roof. This was the six
yep.
inch staples.
And what did we do? But we put it right into our pec muscles
And he
right off the
laughs.
bat, and he laughs at him.
He laughs like the Joker.
And I mean, and again, for those who didn't see it, this wasn't set up like fake staples.
No, no.
You could see them penetrating
It
into his
glittered.
skin. Yeah, you could see them all the way in. You know, he later pulled a few of them out. You watched him pull them out. Um, it was the real deal for sure.
And the first
Um,
couple he pulled out, he didn't really pull out. He went like this. And he like flicked them out. So he didn't even try and like, he just, and he laughed while he did it.
yeah,
Like,
and
bro, I would have been pissing
yeah,
myself.
and
Pissing
then he,
myself.
to make it even worse, then Swerve takes the stapler and he staples Page in the cheek,
Oh,
like
oh,
right
and
in
the
the cheek,
picture on the
like
back,
right
right?
here. Yeah, yeah. He took out a picture
Because he had him like
and
this.
he clunk, clunk, and they're right there in his cheek. Again, you see them. Like they are not. This is not like, oh, there's no staples in this. This is like camera close up. Let me show you that those two staples he just put in my cheek, which have got to have gone through, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
points of them. I mean, even if you shaved down the staples a little bit before loading them in the stapler, that there's some depth there.
Yeah, but then you gotta
And
think, if you shave down the staplers, that's not, I mean, they're already not that thick of a material. So if you shave it down, there's a chance it's just gonna fall out as soon as you squeeze the gun, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm
So
not even
you
sure that they did. I'm just saying, even
no,
if they
yeah.
did,
So
like,
like
there's still some depth there.
you can't screw around like that to make it easier, like you do when you have like the thumbtacks, right? Or if you're
Yep.
using the barbed wire, you just dull the ends of it so it hits and bounces instead of hits and sticking and pulling. Yeah, yeah, man. Oh my god. Yeah, it
Yeah. Um, I don't even know. I mean, and that was just how we started. Um, I mean, from there, what else did we get? We
the
got
brick that wasn't fake
well, I wasn't even ready to get there yet. We had barbed wire, which they did a bunch of different things with and
and
wrapped it through the steel cage, and kept throwing guys into it. Yeah, then he brought out a cinder block, which I said to you while they were doing that. I said, the only problem with the cinder block spots for AEW is they typically get the ones that crumble into dust. So they don't look all that like real once they do something with them because they literally disintegrate. And little did I know that a minute later, he would, Adam Page, Hangman Page, would powerbomb Swerve onto the cinder block,
it did not
which
break.
did not even,
Dent.
not even a piece of it
No.
fell off.
No, no, no,
And
no.
he'd hit that square in the center of his back.
Like you saw his body on contact go like this. It just looked like all four of his limbs just had a bench in. It's
Right.
just like, and then, well, back to the barbed wire real quick. For anybody that's familiar with barbed wire, you could tell they didn't dull those edges because when they pulled that barbed wire, you got the streak mark down the chest, right? Like it wasn't like they just pulled the barbed wire and you only had the dot. You had the point where it looked like a cat claw, like from the barbed wire. They were not like that was
Right.
real like that wasn't dull up like let's flatten the ends, dull the ends, do whatever we can so we just get the poke and then once we pull it out, it's just gonna sting. That's it. No, that barbed wire was like cat claw barbed wire. That dragged through the bodies. Dragged.
No, and the other thing on the cinder block too is they went to do a move, and I don't know if they missed it by accident or if they meant to miss it, but Swerve went to do a move on Page, and they weren't lined up right, so Page didn't hit the cinder block the way I think he was supposed to. But if remember what happened, he scraped it, and there
Yeah.
was a big, huge scrape, road, road burn, like rush burn, like motorcyclists that fall off their bike get those kinds of
Yeah,
burns.
it was
And I
flesh on
was,
flesh. Like that's what it
yeah, and
was.
I was like, wow, that cinder block really is real. And then when they did the swerve spot on it, um, and I mean, they just punished each other, and we saw we saw that continue. They continued to go back to the barbed wire, and then next thing you know, in one of the more gross spots I've seen in quite some time, Paige brings out a needle, a
Mm.
regular old hypodermic needle.
I'm
I
staring at
don't
a
think
picture of it too, and it's just even
I
the picture
I
is making me.
I'm yeah, yeah. I don't think it had um I don't think it had stuff in it. I can't remember, but I
No, he
don't think it
just stabbed
had.
him with it.
Yeah, and he takes the cap off and he proceeds to, right on the camera too. I have to say, with the camera, they like did not pan away from anything but the very end. And he jabs it into his inner cheek, and then you see a spot where he lets go of it, and there it is, just kind of dangling, bouncing out of Swerve's mouth, and
Yeah, he took the grill
inserted
out.
into his. Oh, he took the grill out too.
Which is
Yeah, I
crazy
forgot.
because like you saw him pull his head back, he reached into his mouth, he pulled it out, and then you're like, I first thought is Swerve taking this brick to the face? Like that was my first thing. Like is he's putting Swerve's face on this brick and he's stomping it or something? Like is he stealing the stomp for this tonight? Um, and then he showed it and stuck it. And at that moment, that's when my dad went upstairs to bed. He said, "Screw you
Yeah,
guys. This is too gross. I can't believe you watch stuff like this.
yeah.
I'll
I
talk to
mean
your mom."
that the needle spot was literally the moment where I said to myself, yeah, this stuff normally doesn't bother me, but here I am watching this like this because I kind of want to cover my eyes, but I kind of got to see what's happening here, and I couldn't, and I just like. I mean, I have to give myself a shot once a week using an insulin needle that has a needle that's about this long,
This
and
was
I don't even like doing it. This needle was like this long, and he jammed it in like sideways, so it didn't go through his cheek, but it went deep in his cheek, like you would like Novocaine at the dentist, right?
which
Like they
is
use those long ass friggin' needles.
which is crazy because if we weren't talking about this stuff, we would talk about how stiff those power bombs were that they did to the cage wall because they were hitting Swerve's
Right.
back of his
Yeah,
head first, then his back,
they were just chucking them at the wall or at
and
the chain link wall.
but like Swerve said in his tweet, it's unsanctioned. What did you think was gonna happen? Go where no one else will go. And then Dan,
I mean, that's fine, and I get that. Um, so then, what more can we do to make this match crazy, right? We've seen our what seemingly must have been a real cinder block. We've seen barbed wire, we've seen staple guns, we've seen incredibly tough moves into the cage walls, back and forth, like crazy other moves off the ring ropes, off the
yeah,
turnbuckle. What else can we do? Oh, let's do the most vicious sounding and
unprotected,
hard, unprotected, and hard chair shot to the head directly,
and that chair was
which
not bent, did not have a round top like they d- normally do. That was a straight what's under the ring steel chair.
for sure I do agree with some of the online dirt stuff that it was shaved down because the only thing I'll say about it is the sound of it did remind me of the cookie sheet stuff they used to do.
Okay,
Um,
that's fine. That's fine. But you're still getting the
but,
impact, right?
but
With that,
oh, you're getting the impact. I mean, the impact was so great that the seat flew off of the
yes,
frame of the chair,
yes, just snapped
and
from the small arms.
and and obviously AEW knew that it was going to be rough because they did not do a camera angle of it directly. They did the as he was swinging, they were close, and at the last second, they went to like almost a stadium view. You heard the noise, you kind of saw, and then after the impact, they went back, and all you see is Swerve's head sticking through the frame of the chair, and he's on the ground, or he's back, I think, on the ground, and he's out. Obviously, the referee immediately calls the match and ends it. The seat of the chair is like a foot away,
Correct.
like,
It's almost out of the
and
ring.
and the sound is just deafening, and then the crowd is silent, like
What do we just witness?
silent.
Yes.
And I couldn't help myself. I had to go find a fan cell phone video or a different video of it, which there was one. And I mean, he hit him perfectly on the forehead and crown of his head. And I mean, he hit him with all the force in the world, which this to me it's not quite maybe over the line as the bag or crazy as the bag, but it's as close as you're gonna get because this move was allegedly banned after the Cody debacle
Yeah.
when they screwed up the chair shot. They haven't done Well, I don't know that they haven't done head chair shots since. I guess I can't say that for sure. They certainly haven't done them like this, and certainly not unprotected. Um, and then it was over, and I think I'm just like I'm sitting there going, okay, like
I
what did I just watch?
yeah, I was shocked. I still can't put it into words. Cause uh my dad told everybody the next day that he talked to what we made him sit down and watch. And people were like, how could you watch that? And my exact response was, I I don't know. I didn't even think it was still real. Like that's where I stood on all of it. I was just like, I don't know if this is like I'm I'm still trying to like just take in what happened. Um Dan, so do me a favor.
Yeah,
Rank what you saw in those last two batches from the worst down.
the absolute worst that I saw.
Yeah.
I think the bag is the worst
See,
for
but
me.
so many people are tied up on the needle.
Yeah, I mean the needle's going to be second, the chair shot's going to be third for me, but all of these are like, you know,
I think I put that brick above the chair shot.
I mean these are all. I don't put the yeah, I don't put the brick above the chair shot, even though the brick ended up being real. Like you've seen spots like that on the steps before
Yeah.
and buckle bombs and things like that. So I kind of like I think it's kind of crazy that they did it on a square brick for sure, but it to me it's not as gross as the needle and not as gross as the chair shot ends up being, but they're all like we're ranking these, but like you could really interchange all of these.
So,
The bag I think is the worst for me because it's just so far outside of what we normally would see, and it's just kind of like I mean, that's how people have committed suicide. That's how people have been killed and
no,
murdered in
right.
real life,
Yeah,
right?
the
Right?
bag has to be
Like
one.
that is just so like triggering, I think, for so many people. Like I've never known anybody to do that, but and it's different because I here's a great example. They did that storyline in The Sopranos, right? AJ put a bag over his head and tied a cinder block to him and jumped in the pool, right? But like that's a TV show and that's
Yep.
fake and all that. And like we know this is fake and scripted and all that, but like it's so much different when it's done live like that. So I think the bag is the worst. For me, then the needle becomes next because like I mean, it's just crazy because you could tell he was really stabbing him with a needle. It wasn't like there was no needle on the end of that syringe. There was a big needle on that thing that you saw the resistance when he pushed it. I was
Well,
like, because the camera was right there. There's no way to fake that.
and then when he went like this and he grabbed his cheek, it was dangling like this, just side to side, like in his mouth or in his gum. So like you knew he stuck it in. That wasn't just like he put it in the fat part of your cheek back here where they numb your jaw. That was either he caught part of the gum and it was dangling fully out, or he caught the sensitive part of the nerve. Now, follow up question: how long do you
Mhm.
think they spent in the ER after that?
Um,
Like, because that's all I was thinking about after that show. It's like that's gonna be one hell of a doctor's bill. Like,
what's funny about that is my guess would be is they probably made them go to get checked out, but I'm not sure that they would have spent a ton.
I think they were.
You know,
I think they at least sent Swerve somewhere just so he could get that syringe, like, just so he could get that syringe checked out. That's all.
maybe, maybe. I
So,
mean, I mean, I'm sure for precaution's sake, especially with the chair shot, like you really just kind of have to, right? Like,
well, that chair shot's
um,
a guaranteed concussion, right? Like that's not changing. Like that's a
no,
guaranteed concussion.
right, right.
So,
Um, um, I,
yeah, I'm
I don't know, man.
like I don't know how else to put it into words. Like I just feel like you have to go watch it from start to finish, right?
It is available on demand, so people can still buy it and watch it again. Um,
Still full price, right? On demand, $50. I think
yeah,
it's
I
still.
think so. I don't know for sure, but I think so. Yes.
That's the only thing I'm just not a big fan of. If the on demand price still being $50, but yeah, it's crazy, man. It is. I don't know, brother. I don't I don't know what else to say about it. Like it still has me shocked. But um, I don't know. It's. Do you think they tone it down now, going forward with Swerve for a bit?
Um, no. Well, tone it down. I mean, you can't get any worse. So I think I don't know if you can get any worse. I don't think you can get any worse.
Purposely, I mean, on purpose, like tone it
Yeah, I
down with
mean,
Swerve.
I don't know what they're doing next. My guess is, I mean, Paige was on Dynamite today. I didn't hear what he said. I didn't have the volume up. He did a quick little promo to start. But um I don't know. I mean, Swerve takes a break for a little while, right? Like, you know, this would be a good way to give him a breather for sure.
Yeah, it's yeah. Oh, and we're getting the Bucks versus Osprey and Kyle Fletcher.
Double champions.
Don't care.
Or well,
Um,
Osprey be a double champion.
yeah, don't care. Um, yeah. I mean, so what else do you got to say, Dan? I'm like lost from words, just trying to like discuss this all. Like that's where I am at with this. I'm just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. I was left. I mean, I hope it's the end of it, for now. But I feel like they will randomly come back to this, kind of like a Kevin Owens Sammy type thing, because
yes,
these two can always give you a crazy good match, whether it's a lights out unsanctioned or just a regular match. Like, and they can always have a feud, so it doesn't need to be anytime soon, but yeah, I don't know what's next. I mean, Paige, I'm looking now. Um, Paige is definitely going into this like crazy heel type character.
yeah,
Um,
agreed.
Now he's going to go on to hunt down the people who tried to get in his way of Swerve, of him getting to Swerve, I guess. So I think Swerve's probably out for a bit. Maybe there's some planned time off there. He can come back and get right back into a title picture, you know, after taking maybe he's away for a couple months.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. I just
Actually, it looks like we're gonna get Jeff Jarrett and Hangman for maybe next because they had a little scuffle backstage. So they're probably letting Paige. run through some guys for a while, and maybe he gets back into a title picture, and then again Swerve can. So I think I told you this. I think it was John Alba on his podcast with Matt Hardy. I think they were just talking about some stuff, and he says what he would do if he was in charge is after this match that they had, he would let Swerve go away for a while. He would give Page Hangman the title at some point soon.
And then
You
have
know,
Swerve.
he actually said he would let him take it off Danielson, but it looks like they're going the Moxley route. But he would have Hangman take the title, hold it for a decent amount of time, up to a year, and have Swerve come back and take it from Hangman. And that, they could tie their feud eventually a year from now, maybe. I think he said at the next All In, which would be next summer in Texas. Um,
Yeah, I'm for
and
it.
let Swerve take it from him, which could work too. So
Yep.
Swerve could be gone for a couple of months and then come back and kind of claw his way in, and then whatever. So yeah, I'm sure it gets toned down for a bit, um because that was just, I mean, I'm exhausted just recapping it.
Yeah.
I was exhausted watching it because it just like had
It
you on the
didn't
edge
seem
of your
real.
seat. No, and it just had you on the edge of your seat, like,
Correct.
what more can these two do to each other? And then now recapping it, it's like same deal.
Um. So I guess the only thing left to talk about AEW. Well, Tony made a comment pre-show prior to, right? About the WBD.
He, I think he made it. I think he made it after um, Rampage Collision the night before.
Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it was. So Tony comes out and addresses the crowd as he always likes to do, and says, "Looks like AEW is gonna have a long-standing future with WBD." So contract
Yeah.
done. Just probably ironing out the numbers.
Yeah. My guess is it's like agreement in principle. Now just doing
Let
the
the
fine print.
attorneys go through everything.
Yeah, doing the fine print. Maybe there's one or two little details to haggle about. But like the best thing I can think of like is Eric used to always talk about deal memos,
Yes,
right? Where you tell a wrestler, look, here's the framework of your deal.
you're right. And then we'll
Five
finalize
years,
it. Yep.
right? 5 years, downside guarantee $1 million a year. No matter what, you're going to get $1 million a year, 72 appearances a year, whatever it is, 170 dates. We'll get you a full contract, but sometimes he said those guys could work for months on a deal memo, you know, before they signed the final contract that had all the little
The
details
specifics.
about,
Yeah.
right, your first class flights or your whatever and all that kind of stuff. So my guess is that's what it is. I mean, I've seen the stories out there that he didn't really have a lot of competition looking to bid on AEW. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not true. He probably didn't have a deal that beats what WBD. I don't think for one second that WBD wasn't going to make an offer. I'm sure they were going to make an offer. I'm sure they were going to make a decent offer. What I didn't think would happen is that anyone would beat their offer. Maybe somebody would make an offer that just doesn't beat it, because I'm sure there's some networks out there that would like it but aren't just don't have the budget for it.
Right. Well,
So
and I'm interested to see if Turner does put this on, like, as the big thing on their sports network, right? And then they have this on, and then they go to, like, their late night sports talk show afterwards. Like, that's cool,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it's been crazy, man. Like, it has been nuts.
Now, what do you think of this Fightful report that said there's a possibility a of a Fox show for AEW too, in addition to everything else going on?
Is WWE completely gone with Fox?
Yes.
I would say
The only reason I bring it up is because we know it's from a reputable enough source.
no, yeah, no, it has to Fox has to be in play now that they don't have any wrestling, right? Because with
Yeah,
wrestling, you can guarantee at least what 600, 700,000 a show, and you
right.
just know, right? Like it's like guaranteed cash in your pocket. Like you buy the
Yeah, so I
stock
mean,
20 years down the line, you're gonna get the dividends off the stock, like that type of thing.
right.
Like
And in fairness, the report also says that they can't confirm either whether or not this would even be possible because would a WBD deal allow for
that's true.
non-exclusivity? So like they're just saying it's what's out there that's possible. Um the way I read Fightful's report, or at least this recap of Fightful's report, um there's no official word on whether or not there is a true deal, or if AEW and WBD have agreed to a non-exclusive contract. Um, but AEW did trademark AEW Shockwave as a new name that I believe is for some sort of show, if I remember correctly, the report. So, um, I don't know, but that could be, doesn't necessarily have to be a weekly show. It could be a pay-per-view.
Yeah. No, agreed. Yeah, that they just want that to be protected. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So, hell of a time, man. Hell of a time for
Yeah.
wrestling, right? Like we've been like we said like if both shows can just be on track at the same time, like how much it would just benefit everybody that loves to watch wrestling. And the past 2 weeks it's been that, right?
Yeah.
And now like this Moxley stuff is weird, but it's like weird to the point of like I still have to tune in to figure out what this crazy person is doing. It's not like weird like this doesn't make sense, I'm not going to watch it. It's like weird, he's going after Darby, he's going to get the title shot. Is he going to put Danielson out? And how does he
Hmm.
put him out? Does he break it? Like, does he break his neck finally? Right? Like that type of thing. Like, does it get that violent? Because I could see Moxley being the one to do it that way.
Yeah.
Because he always walks that line. So, yeah, man, it's keep watching wrestling. Tune into wrestling. They seem to be both companies seem to be hitting all four companies, sorry, WWE, NXT, TNA, and AEW seem to all be just hitting. Like, I don't know how long
Yeah.
this is gonna keep going on, but man, watch
I
as much
mean,
as you
this,
can now. It's awesome.
yeah.
It
I
is,
mean, and this is, I mean, I know I have it on while we're potting, but this is the first time I've had Dynamite on for 2 straight hours in,
yes,
I don't know, at least a year probably. So ever since CM Punk left.
correct. I was just
So,
about to say it was probably something that involved MJF and Punk.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair because I think I just tuned in to when MJF returned, and then as soon as he returned, I was done. I don't think I stayed.
I might not have either, no.
So, but yeah, should be interesting. Should be interesting. Well, you got anything else you would like to throw out there, Dan, in the wrestling universe, or should we call
No,
this one quits?
I think we can call this one quits.
All right. Well, season 2, episode 9, Botch Wrestling Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, and as I said, go watch as much wrestling as you can. Just not through Thriller app. Or the Triller app. I just hate that app in general. But go watch it all. Go watch WWE. Go watch TNA, NXT, AEW. It's also good right now. Just enjoy it while we have it because we don't know what's gonna happen based on the transition of shows. Who gets injured? Knock on wood. We're at a golden place right now, Den. Right? golden place here. So let's just
We
enjoy it.
are.
Stop the arguing, because it's really just being obnoxious over the smallest things that involve wrestling right now. And just enjoy it, man. So until the next week, Wednesday, Thursday, whenever we can fit it in, we'll be back. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, and just let us know. Adios.